Other. What's up, comic book fans? Anchorpete here, and I'm with my good friend, Mr. Dr. Zayas God, Danny Torkel. Danny, we are kind of having a moment right now, aren't we?
I believe so.
We got this Raised by Wolves show that's kind of growing, getting some more viewers because of this, and we're probably getting a lot more viewers today because my Twitter's kind of blowing up with that Barbie.
The key to going viral, it appears, is to let your daughters sick their pet rats on Barbie dolls.
Yeah, it's up to like 374,000 likes at this point.
That's crazy. That's legit. That's viral.
Yeah.
That is it.
So I'm figuring that as people are like clicking on that and they're like looking at my profile, they might see you and me talking about Raised by Wolves episode 7, ironically entitled "Feeding." So.
And then we could take that image of the doll with the mouth, and then we could put that in the laser glass image of the laser cast and use that for our other channel to promote our horror content. So that we could do that as well.
There you go,
but
man.
yeah, that it's pretty fun. I mean, when you showed me that picture, I was like in awe. It's like genuinely terrifying. My favorite one that I saw from like scrolling through your Twitter was the Alice in Chains a Jar of Flies phony album cover. Whoever made that, genius, great job. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and besides, all that attention that we're getting for that, you and I just talked to David Weiner, who's the director of In Search of Darkness 1, 2, and 3, In Search of Tomorrow. We had a really awesome interview yesterday. I'm editing it right now. Yeah.
Yes, friend of our channels. That will be up on the Lasercast later this week.
Yes, sir.
Charlotte and I were at Monster Mania Con number 49 at Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We met a bunch of really cool people, and you edited the shit out of a video for us, which is doing some pretty good numbers as well. If you go over to the Lasercast channel, you can see that. Charlotte and I had a great time. We met Barbara Crampton. I'm sorry, Pete. I did tell her that I feel that she has a rotting picture of her somewhere in an attic somewhere, like a Dorian Gray. Yeah. I've also shown her picture to people at work, and I'm like, how old do you think she is? And I've gotten 38, 45, and early 50s. The woman is 64 years old. I have never seen a woman look that good at 64, and I'm not being a creep. It doesn't make any sense. She also judged me to my face about letting my 11-year-old daughter watch Reanimator. She gave me a really bad stink eye. I get it. Charlotte and I also met Devin Sawa from Chucky. We met Dana DiLorenzo and Ray Santiago from Ash vs. Evil Dead. That video is up on the Lasercast. It was a lot of fun. And our David Weiner interview was so good yesterday. I couldn't sleep last night. I was up till like 1:30 in the morning. I think because I was like kind of caught up in the moment of our interview with him. I felt like it went so well that like the energy of it carried me through the evening.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. We were talking about sci-fi and just like how our real world influences the movies that we've grown up to love, and just some of the people behind the scenes. Danny and I have just kind of shown that we love talking about sci-fi, and because we've always talked about horror on the Lastercast, but now because of this show, Raised by Wolves, we've also gotten a chance to talk about sci-fi and like the future of the world. And I'm curious, do you think that you would show your 11-year-old daughter this show? Because this show is pretty fucked up.
Again, viewers might call my parenting into question. There is literally nothing on this show that she hasn't seen elsewhere.
Right.
I might. The only reason I might hold off for now is because it's a series and not a movie.
Right.
There's so much deep, like emotional and theoretical and philosophical questions that this show has that might be well over the head of an 11-year-old. That does not take anything away from the show. It's an amazing show, but this feels like a show that I would love for her to watch in a couple years, and hopefully by then there's a season 3 and season 4.
Yeah.
This is the penultimate episode of season 2, right?
Correct. Yes.
Oh boy,
But I
getting
mean,
nervous.
here's the thing, man. You're saying there might be a season 3 or season 4. Things are looking pretty damn apocalyptic on Kepler 22b, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we do our usual shtick where we kind of go character by character,
Yeah.
and let's save kind of the most shocking things for the end. So I thought that we should actually start with like Marcus and Paul, since they're in the very beginning of the episode. How do you think? How do you feel?
Yeah. Let's dive into them. Yeah.
So right off the bat, we have this sort of, the show is always chock full of like Bible references, biblical imagery, and you have Paul bringing this fruit that is from the tree that was made from his, his mom, essentially, right? Sue took over the role of his mom. She's been made into this tree, and now he's taken the fruit that the tree has bore, right? That's how you say it, bared,
Yes.
bored. And he's given it to the people that are in the colony. And did you think that Campion was going to bite that fruit?
I mean, I kind of thought that's where they were going. I loved how they like focused in really close on the people's mouths as they bit into it, which I think I mentioned this to you last episode. When Marcus opens the fruit, it kind of looks like either a heart or a brain,
Right.
and it felt like, and the way it seemed now, it was like part of Sue. That's like the tree is being eaten by the people, and it just like kind of just makes you look and go like, ugh, look, what are they doing?
Yeah.
I thought Campion was, but I once he didn't, I kind of figured that they were gonna have. I was really glad that Campion ended up back into a story with Viril, because
Yeah.
I felt that arc had been kind of left behind for an episode, and I was like, I really hope that comes back. So I was really glad he doesn't. Although we don't really see the ramifications of people biting the fruit and what happens. There seems to be this idea Marcus and Paul have that maybe they'll like fall under the spell of the Mithraic and they'll become like religious. They'll see Saul all of a sudden and
Right.
like flock to the tree. But none of that kind of happens. So maybe like the idea of like false hope that a
Yeah.
lot of times is brought upon by religion in that scene.
Yeah. Well, I think that we're going to see the side effects of eating that fruit at the end of the next episode. That might even be like the cliffhanger moment for the next episode, because season 1 ended with the birth of Seven, right? And it was like, what the hell's going to happen next? There's this giant floating serpent. I feel like the end for this season is going to be another sort of transformative event where a new thing is made. And I think that maybe the colonists are going to start to de-evolve into the kind of lizard-like creatures that we've seen on the show so far. I think that's my best guess. But it is that kind of biblical imagery, right? Because it's like the idea of taking fruit from the tree of knowledge, and that's what ultimately led Adam and Eve to be cast out of the Garden of Eden. So there's that kind of imagery there. And Paul is sort of being like either Eve giving Adam the apple or, Adam taking the apple. So what we end up having is a real kind of dark twist, right? Because with Paul and Marcus, they start talking about Saul. And Marcus, whose beliefs and point of view have changed multiple times over the course of this show, has gone from like a firm advocate for Saul to all of a sudden saying, maybe Saul does exist, but he's like the darkness, right?
Yeah, Marcus has a very almost abrupt transformation in this episode. Like I think, like there's the expression like the shit gets real, and I feel like the shit got too real for Marcus in this episode, where he just watched Sue, like his family reunites at the end of last episode. Sue comes back to him. He has Paul back with him. They're a family again. And then all of a sudden, Sue becomes the tree. and it's a test of his faith. He eats of the fruit of the tree, and when nothing seems to happen, when all these people are eating, he's like, remind me the name of the actor who plays him. I feel
Oh shit! Ah, damn! Ah, fuck!
because
I'll
I
look him up.
watched Vikings, I should know this.
Yeah, you make your point. I'll get the name for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment his acting in this episode because, and really overall, he's been absolutely phenomenal throughout. And I loved how emotional he was. Like Paul seems like he's waiting for stuff to happen, and Marcus kind of realizes almost immediately that nothing is going to happen, and you have that feeling where he's crying and he's trying to keep Paul from noticing, and
Yep.
then and then like almost like when you see what happens later, he's almost like, that's it, I'm done. And all of a sudden, there's this alliance between him and Mother of all people. And you're like,
Yep.
wait
Yep.
a minute, these two
Yep.
characters are together. And I one if I had an issue with anything, it was that the collective seemed a little too easy with Marcus just walking right in.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I felt like they've kind of been at war with each other this whole season.
Yeah.
And Mother comes in with Paul and Marcus, and there's no resistance to Marcus just walking in, which I felt was a little bit strange. But
Yeah.
I do like the idea of suddenly him and Mother are seemingly on the same side, where they're both having this same crisis of faith, almost, where Mother
Mm.
realizes like her offspring has may not be, uh, she's holding out hope for the positives, and she's coming to the reality that there might not be a positive in there. This is just a destructive force, the serpent. And Marcus is coming to the realization of, I thought, you know, my family is back, the tree is here, Saul is putting everything in place, but then it almost instantly falls apart. And
Yeah.
they've both kind of lost everything at the same time, and that kind of weirdly bonds them together in this episode.
Right.
So yeah, I love the way this show, and this is this comes back to something that like we were talking about with David Weiner yesterday in our
Yeah.
interview. Watching sci-fi is so much different than watching horror. And they're genres that are so close together, and they're so linked together. And there's moments in this show, this series, that are horrific and terrifying.
Yeah. This
But
episode.
yeah, but you don't have these like intellectually deep internal conversations with yourself
Hmm.
watching horror. I mean,
Hmm.
even like elevated horror, it's
Mm.
kind of out there on the surface. Like, I don't have to have an intellectual debate about Hereditary or the Babadook with you.
Right.
It's scary. Stuff happens. And, like, yes, you can talk a little bit more about that in a serious way than you would Friday the 13th, Part 7. But,
I hope so.
yeah, but this show, I find myself watching it, and, like, the wheels in my head are just spinning, like, nonstop. And I have,
Of course.
like, it and I really haven't felt this way watching a show in a long time. Like, it's like, I guess Archive 81, which I watched earlier this year, was really good on Netflix, and I
Right.
and I kind of felt like that was a
Yeah.
little bit more horror, but there was also time travel and tons of weird sci-fi stuff in there. But
Right.
yeah, there's so much cool stuff in this show that really just makes you think. And
Yeah. I think that ultimately, though, for me, I keep worrying, is it like they're making stuff to make it like a puzzle to which we're like uncovering things and we're getting excited every time we learn something? Or is there like true depth to it? And I usually kind of err on the side of there is true depth to it, just in the idea of just using it as an allegory for religion and the idea of like faith versus not having faith. I think that there's strength to that. I also really think there's a lot to be said about the idea of like what is done for the sake of there being life. Because the whole idea of Mother, right, is that she does whatever she does because she's trying to have humanity continue and to, keep these children safe. And she does like horrific things. So I think that just those ideas alone give the show merit. I just hope that ultimately, when everything is revealed, it is satisfying. And so, like, you started to kind of talk about the snake, the serpent, and what happens with Marcus and Mother. I think we should kind of just wrap things up with Marcus and talk about what he and Paul witness with the serpent. So essentially, with the serpent, it's able to break free of its little cage that's in the tarantula, which is like the base of the colony. Go ahead.
And it just with the serpent has been calm. Like Campion talks about how it's been like almost like this calming. Nothing's gone on with the serpent for episodes now, but the fruit is starting to drive. The fruit from the tree is driving the serpent crazy, and it's obvious that. Well, I don't know if it's obvious, but it seemed like it craved the fruit, the feeding, right, is the name of the episode. Like
Right.
it feeds. Mother drags all of the remaining fruits over to where the serpent is, and then she busts out and eats them all right away and goes right to the tree.
Right. And here's the thing. I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but at the end of the episodes, when you're watching them on HBO Max, I mentioned this last time, they have a little vignette where they talk about the episode. Like the creators talk about it, the cast talks about it. And I'm finding that to be very helpful to watch because it makes the show make a little bit more sense. And they straight up say in that vignette, Guzikowski, right, the writer of the show, he says that the idea behind the tree is that the serpent is supposed to eat it to become weaponized. And they use that term many times in this episode, is weaponized. And one of the guys that works on like the special effects of the show said that when the snake goes down, I was gonna say the snake goes down on the tree. That is what happens, though. It goes really.
This has suddenly become a very different podcast.
Yes, yeah. For all you furries out there and arborists, whatever. So the snake goes down on the tree and it gobbles up all that fruit, and then all of a sudden, like tentacles kind of come out of the side of it. And they said right on that vignette that that's like the roots of the tree coming out and making those tentacles. So it's like this metamorphosis. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was my first thought. My first thought was, oh, it's the roots are growing out and it's gonna like become an even bigger. But then my next thought was, okay, no, they're tentacles. This is like Lovecraftian in some way. Right. And then my last thought was, it kind of looks like Sharktopus. But it was really those first two thoughts. My first thought was it looks like roots, and then oh shit, this is now all of a sudden a Lovecraftian, like one of the old ones of Lovecraftian lore, with a name that you can't pronounce.
Exactly. And there's one thing I wanted us to mention because it's maybe one of the most disturbing things in the episode, and it's before this scene. It's when Paul and Marcus are together and they're by the tree and they pick up this transmission, and the transmission is Sue, and you can't hear it at first, and then you can tell she's saying, "Burn me." And like, that's so friggin' disturbing. And look at this, Danny. It's a good thing that we did this at this time because look, we got one of our guys that comments all the time, DJ Ash. He wrote, "The humans created God long ago. Now God has infected memory. It's corrupt." So I think like the idea behind that, and they even kind of mentioned this on the show in the vignette, is the idea of the whole planet itself is like a system. It's like a program. And that's part of the program is for the snake to eat the tree. So that's
and grandmother even hints that things like this have happened before. And I was just gonna thank you for the comment, but I was just gonna also just to go back to Mother for a second. Like, I love the idea that she tries to like in her necromancer state, she tries to destroy the serpent, and it's the idea of she, like you said, she's a caregiver above all to protect human life, and it's her own child So even though it's this monstrous destructive force, she can't kill it. And at the same time, we'll get to it, but you have the baby. Who's the? Why do I keep forgetting character names? The one who had the baby with the
Oh,
T.
Tempest.
Tempest.
Yeah.
Tempest has the baby, and she created this life, but she doesn't want. She's ready to like move on from it, and
Yep.
it's there's so many parallels to different characters. I loved it.
I wanted to also, you were wondering who the actor was that plays Marcus. It's Travis Fimmel.
Travis,
Yeah.
yes, Travis
So,
Fimmel. Yeah, who I always confuse with Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy.
right. Easy to
But
do.
yes, he was amazing on Vikings. He has been phenomenal this whole season, but this episode, I thought in particular, he was just the way he acted almost without talking in the first like 20 minutes of this episode were so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible stuff. And so we're kind of done with Marcus and Paul for now because now the serpent has moved on. They do interact with Mother. Let's save Mother and Grandmother for the end, though, because that's kind of the juiciest stuff. You mentioned Tempest. I think that's where we should go next. And we should talk about Tempest and that whole arc. So, first of all, Hunter has like his own android now, right? That was just cracking me up.
A headless android.
Yeah. And it was kind of, did you see Onward, the Disney movie Onward?
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of like the legs for the dad.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, and then, he's working on it. And then at one point, like, he needs his leg fixed or something. So he goes like this because he doesn't have a mouth to speak or a head. And then also father says something to him and he like flips him off. I love that,
Yeah, this episode, all of a sudden, they were dropping a bunch of F-bombs and curses. And I was like, they've never done that on their show. Okay, like, let's effing go. All right.
I always find that with Hunter, it seems like Hunter is more like from our time, or he talks more like a regular person as opposed to other characters on the show,
Yeah, I feel like the kids, really Hunter, Holly, and Tempest all seem to talk like that. Holly, the way she reacts to Vril later on after what happened in previous episodes, like the way Hunter reacts to Father, how like he loves Father, but he feels that Father's been like avoiding his responsibilities and spending too much time with Grandmother. Right. There, aside from all the religious stuff, there's so much stuff about family and what it means to be family, and biological versus nuclear family versus it's just so many good questions on that front as well.
Yeah, and it can get really freaking weird, even though it's got that whole family allegory. Because one of my favorite things is when you're watching a sci-fi show, and if you took some random person off the street and just showed it to them, showed a scene that you're up to, and they'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I was thinking about this scene. There's one part at one point where you have like Father and Hunter. Vril has shown up and she's got this mask on her face. Someone on a website said that she has like an eyes wide shut mask on her face, right? and then you have this headless android. They're all on a beach and they find a baby that's sucking on the teat of a mer creature. Like, could you imagine if you just showed that to your wife randomly?
Now, I was watching this at work, alone in a classroom. I got to work early and I had this on my phone. So unfortunately, like you, I couldn't watch like the behind the scenes stuff because the episode ends and it just goes back to like the HBO Max screen. But did the alien that was breastfeeding the baby have 3? Because I thought I saw that, and of course my first thought was Total Recall.
Yes. I think she had multiple alien teats. I don't know. I can't believe I said teats twice in this recording already. But
hey,
yeah. It had some Total Recall going on. I knew that Hunter was going to go back and shoot her. Pretty much like once Tempest was like, I'm leaving. I don't want the baby back. And Hunter kept having that look on his face. I'm like, oh, he's going to go back and shoot that alien. And that really just made me sad because I do think that the aliens on this planet are just people. Oh, we got a confirmation from DJ Ash, who's joining us for the conversation, by the way. 4 breasts. Thank you for that confirmation.
Total Recall +1. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. And then also DJ Ash had another point too. This might be all be a test before they reach the planet, and they're all in the simulation on the ship. Still, the computer is testing them. So Sue is alive, and Tally. That's an interesting idea.
That is that's some next level stuff. I feel like, yeah, kind of like Neo in the Matrix. Yeah, that would be interesting.
I think that one thing that kind of backs up DJ Ash's theory there is that there definitely have been multiple times where characters kind of should have died and then they come back multiple times, like Marcus, like Father. So, like, if you're in a
Hunter
simulation,
even makes a joke. Hunter even makes a joke about Father, like, "Wow, you really were built the most durable worker droid."
Right.
When the lightning serpent tentacle monster like knocks him out, and
Yeah.
it's like Father's died 7 times,
At
Mother's
least.
died a few times, all the
Right.
human characters. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, also, I know we're gonna save grandmother to the end, but she definitely made it seem like this is something that goes on, and all of those artifacts are just remnants of the last maybe trial of this could be like the planet where they run the simulation, and that's just stuff left over from previous simulations.
Yeah. 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 I mean, who knows, man? That would be real wild. And the way the show is, I could totally see that happening. So, you know,
Yeah.
but basically we have this scene where Tempest, and once again the actress that played Tempest just did another fantastic job. It's all storytelling, just using her face. She's just sitting there looking at the alien. She has kind of a 180. She goes from desperately wanting to get her baby back to realizing, I don't want to take care of this baby, I'm not able to take care of this baby, it reminds me of the man that raped me. And so Marcus, I think, will probably end up being responsible for the baby since he killed the alien that was nursing it with the
You mean
foresight.
Hunter?
Hunter, holy shit! I keep saying Marcus every time. I mean Hunter. Yeah.
I I'll tell you one thing that I thought was interesting, and I thought it was a choice made on purpose by the writers, was Father's acceptance of
Yes.
Tempest's decision.
Yeah.
I thought it was very easy for them to be like, no, I'm all about raising children. You need to do what you. But the fact that as an android he's able to empathize with her situation and let her out, like basically cleanse her of the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so yeah, maybe Hunter takes the baby. Maybe the baby is given to Father. Who knows?
Yeah. And the actor that plays Father, that is Abubakar Salim, right?
Yeah.
Abubakar Salim. Abubakar Salim was in that vignette that I was talking about at the end of the episode, and he even said the exact same thing you just said, where he was like, that shows growth for Father, or that shows that he's kind of moving beyond his programming, that he lets Tempest leave the baby behind. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of cool. It's really cool to see him, like, he's got the same accent and stuff as Father, but he doesn't like talk in that kind of robotic way. So it's kind of cool to see him like that. Okay. So then we've kind of covered the baby stuff, and now we can talk about Viril, I think, right? So I think that there's one thing that we should wow, I'm fucking stuttering like crazy. There's one thing that we should clarify, because I think we said the wrong thing a couple of episodes ago. We said that Viril's original mother, the original Viril, was killed by Decima, and that's not true. She actually, in this episode, we find out that Viril, the original human Viril, killed herself because Decima had made weapons that had destroyed the atmosphere on Earth. So that was fucking crazy.
Oh, okay.
And that makes sense that her name is like Decima, and she's fucking decimating the Earth, right? It's crazy. And oh wait, we got another DJ Ash comment here. You all brought up the repeated oxygen warnings. This is a simulation. So, like, I don't know what the oxygen warnings are. I don't know. I mean, I'm not as eagle-eyed for certain things, but one thing they've established with the show, though, is that like in the virtual reality simulation, it can seem totally like a real world, 100%. So it's like kind
Yeah.
of foolproof.
That
But
goes
anyway,
back to what Paul was saying, like how like 13 years passed on the ship, and that's how they learned to like be a family, even though they were only, they were in hypersleep, but they were awake in their consciousness. Yeah.
right. And then, we got another commenter. We got Lindsay K, who said, "Is that what she wrote on the tree?" Okay. That's interesting. Maybe Viril wrote a message saying something like that. Okay.
Yeah, that was
So,
in another. That was like a language that we couldn't. She said that she was trying to like empty all of Viril's like human Viril's thoughts that she could before she turns off. So like I think it was like in tribute to her, like anything that she remembered, like all the important stuff, she was just like getting out there. That was when she just like turns randomly to Campy and is like, my spinal cord has been severed. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, there's like moments in the show that just hit you out of nowhere and really mess with you a little bit.
yeah. And it's so crazy because like 3 episodes back, she's brutally slaughtering people. And then this episode, you're like, oh, the little murderer, is going to die, So it's just crazy the way that the show plays with your emotions and the way that you feel about characters. But she is essentially with Campion. They get attacked by the serpent and they hide in this tank. And the serpent, we know, is after people at this point because it kills all the people that are in this tank. It essentially blows them up the way that Mother can blow people up with her scream. And so, she knows that she's going to die soon. And even when she dies, there's like a little warning that says, this product is going to become radioactive. Please, bury it or get away from it, right? It's crazy. Just like a person, but it also has like the potential of a nuke too. I don't know. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. I thought Viril was a fantastic little side character that I really didn't think. Like the first time you see her on the show, you're just like, all right, it's Decima's little robot sidekick. And then she becomes a horror movie slasher villain. And then she becomes the girl from Silver Spoons. And you want, and then like you're kind of in like this bonkers way, you're like rooting for this like little like teenage romance. Yeah. Yes. You're rooting for this almost teenage romance between an android, a faceless android, and Campion, who he does a great job. Like he grew up so much from season 1 to season 2, and but he's really come a long way, I think, and he's another one where like the emotion that these actors are able to bring out is so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, like his reaction to Viril turning off, I thought was fantastic. And also the serpent seems to it not seems to is clearly after Campion.
Yes. Oh,
So
yes. Yeah.
and which is funny because the first time Campion is met by the serpent a few episodes back, I think episode 2 maybe, the serpent just like circles him and treats him almost like a sibling. But now we don't know if it seems obvious that there's intent to do damage at least.
Yeah. And the scream damaged Viril too, right? Just like totally took her out. So yeah, it's very powerful. The serpent, and they keep saying it's weaponized. And DJ Ash right here, he wrote, the scream is a rewind in the simulation. So I like the idea of like Mother's scream and the serpent's scream, or maybe just the serpent's scream. Like if it hits you, you're taken out of the simulation and then you have to start over again. I don't know. All possible things. We only got 1 episode left. So let's finally talk about Mother and Grandmother as we kind of tie everything up and wrap it all up for this episode. So, what are your thoughts on grandmother?
I was it was intriguing seeing how she's seemingly a lot more like human this episode than she was in last episode. I like that she like the whole interaction where she's basically telling Mother, "Oh, you have to be less of a caregiver. Here, you should take my veil." And I'm kind of curious to see like if she takes the veil off, like what's going to be behind there. Is it going to be like Viril's angry robot face, or you know, maybe Mother's necromancer face? Uh, I'm very curious, but like grandmother seems to be like again something that has been left over from the previous whatever simulations, the previous experiments with human life on this planet, and the way that grandmother was like born almost Hellraiser style from like fluids and everything, and now it's this fully functioning robot. It's again, it's just there's so many questions that I have, and I'm always rooting at the end of any season that, especially when there's yet to be confirmation of a follow up season,
Right.
that the ending somehow is at the same time finite and open somehow. You know what I mean?
I do.
Again, Archive 81, which I don't know if you finished it
I did.
yet.
I did.
I thought Archive
Spoilers.
81 finished perfectly because uh, if there is never another episode of Archive 81, I thought it ended totally like it's an ending that could totally be the end of a movie, a series. Great. But
Right.
if it comes back for another season, there's an easy launching point for and a whole story that can continue. And
Yes.
I'm just hoping that this goes that way because you know I watched Euphoria a couple weeks ago, and you
Okay.
watched Yellow Jackets, and everybody's talking about those shows. Everybody's
Right.
talking about those shows.
Right.
Like we found a few people who we're interacting with now, but it just doesn't seem like this show has captured the zeitgeist in a way that other shows on streaming services like HBO Max or Showtime or whatever it is have done. And so, like, I'm just hoping that either give us an ending. I just don't want it to be an like a 100% cliffhanger,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
we could be left disappointed by.
Right. I agree with you. I feel like things are too up in the air for there to be like this totally great, satisfying conclusion. I think there still would be too many things up in the air, but I'm very curious if they will renew it. I actually just saw an article on Yahoo, like today, that was saying that it's still up in the air whether they're going to renew it or not. Like
Yeah,
HBO's
I
not.
tweeted. You saw my tweet earlier. I was like, for any fans of Raised by Wolves, Pete and I are going to be doing a live video later on this channel, and somebody commented, they're like, "Well, it hasn't been renewed yet for season 3, so you should like, try to get this tweet out there to like build support." And I'm like, "Well,
Oh,
I
okay.
hope
That's
so."
cool.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
retweet me then. Let's go.
Yeah. And as a side note, too, if the people that make Raised by Wolves watch this, I entered in to win a Vril action figure. I'm down for that, man. I want to get that Vril action figure with her messed up face. I'm super excited about that. We got a couple of comments from our friends here, too. We got a lot from DJ Ash and from Lindsay, once again. DJ Ash pointed out this the baby gave off a signal that father could hear. There was this kind of weird moment where father knew where the baby was at first, and I was wondering if maybe he was starting to pick up the signal from like the planet of Saul. I'm not sure. Then Lindsay said, "I don't trust her," referring to grandmother. She said that she gave up that veil quick, but I think that veil is used as like to keep her in check, essentially, like to keep her powers in check. Now, Danny, they did show a coming up next week kind of scene at the end of this one. and it does show what's under the veil. Do you want me to kind of spoil it, or you don't want it spoiled?
I have to start watching this show at home on HBO Max. I went to the horror convention this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, and I was stuck with it on my phone. But the one thing I will say about what Lindsay said, she gave I don't trust grandmother, and she gave up the veil too quick. Part of me is curious because grandmother was not there. Like, father had to recreate grandmother.
Right.
Is grandmother setting mother up to be the new grandmother of it? Maybe that's kind of how the cycle works.
Could be. Yeah.
Now I got it. What's under the stupid veil?
Do you want me to tell you or no?
Yeah, I mean, the show aired Thursday, so spoilers for. I'm sure the people who are talking to us right now, they've watched it, obviously. Yeah, let me know what's under.
So basically, under the veil it's just that actress's face, the actress that plays grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she's really beautiful, and she's got those kind of eyes like father, where it's like kind of blue rimmed or whatever. So she is talking as if she's going to bring like a new era, and I think Lindsay actually said something like this too. I feel like grandmother's going to bring an era of happiness and may rule as a tyrant. So I think that's what's going to happen, is that I think she's going to take over the colony. And what's really interesting about Mother is she does that speech where she's talking to, grandmother. She's doing that speech and she mentions believers and technocrats, right? And she refers to seven as the entity. So there's the idea that like believers and technocrats, right? You got Mithraic and atheists. And so, there's definitely the idea of like, this has happened before. It's about to happen again. The question is,
they referred to the serpent as the entity, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, so the serpent at this stage is a product of both sides. Like Mother was built as a Mithraic necromancer, but she's altered by the atheists, and she gives birth to the serpent. The serpent eats the tree, which is a Mithraic prophecy. So there's atheist and Mithraic, or technocrat and Mithraic in there, and maybe that's like the combination of the combination of sides creates this like evil that could destroy. You would think like. I'm just thinking like we really need like bipartisanship in the world, and it's like this entity that is a combination of both sides is going to end up destroying everything. So
it might, but then Lindsay brings up this really good point. This is something I completely forgot about. Do you think she will build the city? And there's that idea of the city that Paul mentions, which is a city of peace, right? That's the prophecy, is that there's going to be this man that brings about a city of peace. And so we've always talked about, is the serpent the man? Is Campion the man?
Paul,
is
Marcus
the man? Right.
Yeah.
So many different characters that could be that person that builds the city of peace. And so, honestly, we really just need to watch the finale, which is on Thursday, to see where the hell all this is going.
I think Thursday I'm going to sit my ass down on the couch and watch the show. And not worry about, getting to work early on Friday to watch it on my cell phone. I'm going to take in everything on the bigger screen.
Nice, yeah. And watch the behind the scenes stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, well, my kids are looking pretty hungry for dinner, so I got to get going. But it was, as always, a pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate you guys commenting.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And
that makes this so much more fun when there's other people participating too. But anyway, like Danny and I said, we have our interview with David Weiner. That's going to go up on our other channel, the Lacercast, which you guys should go check out too.
Yeah.
And that interview, I'm working on it right now. It might even be up before Thursday, which is the day I said
nice.
Yeah.
And just keeping with sci-fi, on the Lacercast this month, bouncing off of In Search of Tomorrow, you and I are going to be reviewing 80s sci-fi movies that have some horror in there. So we're going to be doing the big Arnold 3, Terminator, Predator, and Running Man, all three of which were covered in Search of Tomorrow. that David Weiner talked about with us yesterday. So that's what we're going to be doing the rest of this month into early April, and I can't wait to talk about those and to rewatch those movies. So
yeah. So you guys come join us for that stuff too. We love having y'all. Just like we have Lindsay saying a last note here, no cell phone for the finale. That's for you, Danny.
yes,
And then DJ Ash is saying the city of rest and peace. So there you go. Maybe the city is everyone's dead.
yeah,
Who's going to make it out of the finale? Check in with me and Danny next week after you watch Raised by Wolves, episode 8. See y'all.
All right.